Hello, we have in this episode 2 our final interviews for Leanne's Real Life special podcast, You, Me and Rare Disease, acknowledging our annual Rare Disease Day at the end of February. In episode 1, we learned some more facts and stats around rare disease, including the definition of a disease and what makes it rare. From there, we have had personal viewpoints, including mine at the end of this episode too. Each of our guests has a different rare disease, which is such a small amount of the over 6,000 rare diseases that there are in the world. But I think these 2 podcasts and 7 interviews gives a great overview of the commonalities we have all faced with prolonged diagnoses and the many challenges that living with a rare disease brings and the opportunities that it can present for those of us who keep seeking to make sense of our situation. I hope you enjoy episode 2 of You, Me and Rare Disease. Many Australians would have seen and heard of Medal of the Order of Australia recipient, Carly Findlay. She is a fellow lover of bright and happy colours in clothing and decor and has dedicated her life to disability advocacy and teaching all of us through her writing, speaking, social media and blogging training and appearance advocacy in news outlets, televised and print media, podcasts, online communities and more. Carly's book, Say Hello, is a heartfelt, inspiring and eye-opening memoir of a little girl in a loving family and community facing medical gaslighting and misunderstanding, who became a woman facing the harsh realities of our world full of prejudice. Despite a recent frightening cancer difficulty, Carly continues her powerful work. Hello, Carly. Thank you for joining us on Rare Diseases Day.
Hi, Leanne. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. What is your rare disease?
My rare disease is ichthyosis. It's a skin condition, and I was born with it. The type of ichthyosis that I have is Netherton syndrome, and it means that my face is really red. It's shiny because I use ointment, like a liquid paraffin ointment, which is similar to Vaseline. I also experience pain and risk of infection, and also it's quite hard for me to cool myself down and warm myself up. So the summer months, it's been really hot lately in Melbourne, and I find it really hard to cool down. So I've been in the aircon a lot. And it also affects things like my eyes. So I don't really have elastic eyelids at the bottom of my lids. They're not very elastic. So that means my tear ducts don't work. And so my eyes are often really dry, and it affects my ears. I get lots of build-up of skin in my ears, and I have to have it cleaned out. It's not so bad now, but when I was a kid, it was a real pain. And it also affects things like, and certainly not now, not since I passed 30 actually, but it did affect my metabolism a lot. I think when I turned 30, my metabolism just slowed down like every other woman, because I used to be
Yeah.
able to eat so much and remain really thin, but that's changed a little bit. But I still do eat a lot, but my body's constantly trying to renew skin. So I use a lot more energy than most people. So for most people that don't have ichthyosis, they would shed their skin, like a whole body's worth of skin, once over a 28-day cycle. And I shed 1 day's worth of skin, 28 days worth of skin in 1 day.
Goodness
So
me.
it's a lot. It's a lot to, clean up after myself, but also things like my washing machine gets really tired, I guess, because it's constantly cleaning and gathering the ointment. So it's very oily, and I keep, most people would get a washing machine, once every 10, 15 years. I get one every 3 or 4 years. So that can be quite expensive.
Yeah.
And then, little things like, uh, like the skin I leave behind, I think is quite tricky because it's so stigmatized. And then also on top of the medical stuff, it's the social barriers that are really annoying and difficult, like people being scared of my appearance. Like if they see me, maybe they get a fright, or kids don't want to look at me and they cry, or people ask me if I'm sunburnt. And, there's not a day goes by that I'm not stared at or asked a question about my skin. So it's a lot.
A lot. Are you finding that any better as your
um,
profile grows and we
yeah.
become more aware of
Yeah,
of
I am. I
it?
did the show You Can't Ask That a few years ago. So in 2017, my episode aired in the second series. It was the facial difference episode. And I reckon for a good like 3 or 4 years, more people asked me if I was on You Can't Ask That than have I been sunburnt. So that was a positive.
Yeah.
um, and it definitely does change, but then, like, it just happens, I guess. Then the more educating you do doesn't mean you're gonna reach the people that you need to. So, like meeting a lot of strangers, it just happened. But overall, I think it's gotten more manageable, and people, the people that I have reached are easier to, um, I guess convince that I'm not scary. Yeah.
What does living with a rare disease mean for you then?
Yeah, I think, like dermatologically, it's tricky because no one really knows about this condition, not even, GPs or other specialists. I see the Royal Melbourne Hospital dermatology team, which are really great. They're a teaching hospital, and we've got the best doctors in the world, I'd say. But then when I'm seeing other doctors, they are often quite surprised, or I have to educate them more in what this means for me. There's been cases where I've been in the doctor's surgery, like for having an eye consult, and the doctors Googled me while I was there, and literally found my details online, my blog online while he's Googled ichthyosis in the eyes because I've written about it. But also, yeah, I feel like sometimes some doctors feel like they've hit the jackpot when they meet someone with a rare condition. It's like they've won the lottery. How exciting for them. Um,
Absolutely.
but also recently, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had ovarian and endometrial cancer. And when I was told this, I Googled what the impacts of this cancer and the treatment might be for ichthyosis. And there was nothing online, nothing in medical journals, nothing in the media. And so that was really hard because I not only had to learn what cancer meant for me in, a new body, I had surgery and treatment, but also I had to advocate with my whole medical team. So putting my dermatologist in contact with the oncologists and surgeons. And that was a lot as well because we just didn't know how it would react. And I think in with some people with ichthyosis, there's so much shame and stigma that they don't talk about it in general. So, and even if they've got another medical condition, some people have told me they don't even tell their other types of doctors that they have ichthyosis. So I'm thinking that, perhaps they haven't been public about it, and there's literally nothing documented. So I made it a very conscious decision to document my experience with cancer and ichthyosis. And as a result of that, someone with ichthyosis found me. They were in Europe, and they were diagnosed with a different type of cancer around the same time as I was. And they also went through the exact same medications that I had for my chemo, and they also had radiotherapy. And so my information, not that I'd shared, helped them and know what to expect, which was great. So, it's been worth it for that one person to share my story. But it was a lot of advocating and a lot of not knowing. The what's it called? The chemotherapy, first round of chemotherapy where I was taking two types of chemo really affected me. My skin got really, really sore, and I wasn't able to walk, and I'd use all my energy just to get to the bathroom and back, once a day. And that was really hard. So they changed that medication, which is good, and it was easier the next 3 rounds for chemo. But overall, it was really tricky. And then it was dealing with Centrelink to try and get some support, and they just don't get how severe a skin condition can be. So I think that's probably the trickiest, that people assume that it's just a bit of eczema on the back of the leg, and
There's a lot
it's
of
so much
invisibility
more.
about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, yeah. And, yeah, I think one of the other things is, I've written about this a lot recently, is that there seems to be a bit of a competition between invisible and visible disabilities, and I don't think that people with invisible disabilities see that so many of us with visible disabilities have those invisible aspects and that are
Yes.
really tricky. Like, there shouldn't be any type of competition. We're all fighting for the same thing and experiencing very similar. So,
And finally,
mhm.
what do you think is the importance of having a dedicated rare diseases
Mm.
day, which is pretty almost global now,
Mm.
but definitely nationally.
Yeah.
Um, why do you think it's important?
Yeah, it's important because I think there's a lot of focus and media coverage of people with quite common conditions, which is great, and that should continue. But often people with rare diseases aren't heard and often feel alone and fall between the cracks, especially within the medical system, because people don't know enough about it, or they might be diagnosed with the wrong thing, or not understood, or told to do some treatments that don't work. And I think it's really important for us to be really visible and to show that we're here and count, and that there's so many types of rare diseases. I think also one of the cancers I was diagnosed with, endometrial cancers, classed as a rare cancer as well,
Right.
which is
Of course
which
it
is
is.
yeah. I was listening to a podcast about the cancer run by ANZCOG, and I think that, I don't know what that stands for, but I think it's the Australian Council of Gynecological
Oh, okay,
um,
yes. Yeah.
medicine or something like that. And somebody with endometrial cancer was in New Zealand, and they were saying that with their type, there was only one other person in New Zealand with that type. So, yes, they could do a support group, but it was very small. It was a support
Yes,
group of
yeah.
two. So, yeah. But I also think, like, knowing how many people that I know with ichthyosis around the world, and we look more like each other than we do our family members. When we connect, it does feel like we're a bit of a family, and I think that's a really good thing. And I think the other thing is, for patients, for people with rare diseases, it's so important to connect with each other to see what's possible. One of the proudest things that has happened to me is that a woman in Melbourne contacted me when she was pregnant, and she knew that she was going to have a baby who would have ichthyosis. And so she was reading my book, and she asked me some questions, and she said she wanted to be the best ally she could be for her baby. And then I met her little boy a couple of times, and it was just really lovely to have that connection and see him
That's
grow up. And yeah.
yeah. Well, so it really is important that we all understand that there are many. Well, there's over 7,000 rare diseases registered in Australia,
Mm,
um, and there's just so many, and if nothing else, well, all your brilliant advocacy, including your book, has obviously helped a lot, and I'm sure, as you sort of said with the doctors, with the doctor, the specialist as well. Hopefully, some of them are reading it, and it
mhm.
will become helpful for future diagnoses and and sorting things out for people.
Yeah, I had a telehealth once during chemo with a doctor that I hadn't seen before, and she was an oncologist, and she said, "I hope it's okay to say, but I've been giving your book to all my new registrars," which was really nice. So so it wasn't even a dermatologist, just thought to give my book to them. So that was
Yes,
really
that's
good.
really
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. I was doing some research from my work, actually, and I work in the arts, and I was seeing that uh, comorbidities amongst people with chronic illness is so common. So often we have more than one thing. Um,
Yes, I've
yeah,
been reading that too and
yeah.
learning about that and living with that too. So yeah, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think sometimes people think you can only be one type of disabled.
yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
it. You're just sitting in a wheelchair. You're
Mm,
fine. Like your face is
mm-mm.
red. What
Yeah.
else is the problem? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's just, yeah, I think we really need people to broaden their, concepts of disability, and
everybody, or just understanding. Like, we can't expect everybody to understand or have the time to sort of really know every intricate detail of
Mm,
our lives, and we don't want them to.
mm,
Like they, in a lot of ways, everyone's sort of got their own things to go through, but we just really want the empathy and not to be gaslit, and to the
mm,
understanding that if we say we're in pain, or if we say this doesn't work for us, or we can't go out here, we don't have the energy, just
mm,
believe us.
mm. Yeah, and I think as well, one thing really showed me when I was diagnosed with cancer was it took so long to get a diagnosis, and I went to the doctors and the chemist um, so many times to have tests because all of the ovarian cancer symptoms are bowel related. Like a lot of them are bowel related, so feeling full quickly, going to the toilet a lot, and I was having tests for all those bowel symptoms and nothing was coming up because obviously I didn't have a bowel condition. But to have it get so severe that I went to emergency and then, 5 months after the bowel symptoms started, I think having people, more educated, like doctors need to be really educated in finding these things sooner because
Yes.
there's no
Yeah.
early detection tests for ovarian cancer.
Let's welcome Clare Reilly, who has multiple sclerosis, to our Rare Diseases podcast, special podcast. Most of us may not realise that multiple sclerosis actually is a rare disease. To help support others with MS, Claire not only has 3 seasons of her own podcast, MS Understood, but this driven woman is planning to raise $100,000 for MS researching by trekking on her, not just a wheelchair, through the 1,000 kilometres of the Mundabidi Trail in Western Australia. Thank you so much for coming, Claire. Can you tell us more about your rare disease?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I wasn't even certain that multiple sclerosis was classified as a rare disease.
No.
So I'm just honoured to have been included. MS is a bit of a weird. I mean, I think they're all a bit weird, aren't they? Because I think similarly to LGMD is that most people's symptoms are quite different, and the diagnosis is always quite different. So I'm doing a Instagram series at the moment where people can learn a bit more information about MS. Because I just like when you're central to it, you just assume that everyone knows all about it. I think that what people need to know is that it's can be an invisible disease and non-invisible
Yeah.
visible. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's both internal and external. So for me, it shows up. I'm a wheelchair user and I have weakness on my right side of my body. But for others, it could show up as brain fog or taste sensation changes or a whole variety of different symptoms.
And there's always a commonality, though, of fatigue for one, isn't there?
Fatigue's a weird one because and I'm really bad at it also, but of like saying that you're tired. But I've learned quite a bit recently. So fatigue it's not just the physical effort of things being harder. So for me, obviously using a manual wheelchair at home, so different efforts and energies to get around. But it's also your brain having to rewire and find new neural pathways to get messages through to your whole body because of the lesions that happen in your brain. So, or your central nervous system. And so the effort that even just your brain is taking to rework or rewire those pathways is that's what actually can cause the fatigue.
Right. That's really interesting, isn't it?
Mm, yeah.
Um, what does living with a rare disease then mean for you? As in, has it changed your life significantly, and in what ways?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in April. It'll be 9 years ago. And yeah, it's completely changed my whole life. Before I was diagnosed with MS, and I have a degree in outdoor education. So I would go on hikes or camping or different kind of adventure tourism and that kind of thing. And as a wheelchair user, is not really an option for me anymore. So not only has that changed, but in a weird way, it's really given me like a purpose too. I, as you said earlier, I host a podcast called MS Understood, where people interview people from all over the world who either have MS or support people with MS. So that's something that I work on. But also I went back to uni and I've got a degree in psychological science now. And my goal is to work with people who are newly diagnosed with disability and chronic illness. I think there's a different, and I can never understand what it's like to be born with a disability, but I think the grief that you experience of expecting your life to be one way and then being diagnosed. Most people who are diagnosed with MS are women. So 3/4 of the people diagnosed are women, diagnosed between 20 and 40. So it's that real kind of prime part of your life where you're just feeling like an adult and you can go out and do whatever you want. And then you kind of get this crushing diagnosis. And I think that's, being able to work through that grief or work with that grief is something that people don't always understand. So being diagnosed with MS, my life physically looks very different, but also my kind of purpose, I suppose, has shifted a lot also.
I know we've talked about it before, the working through grief and you need to sort of work with it, don't you?
I feel great today, the last few days. Yesterday I had this day where I ticked so many things off my list and, I got around and I emptied the dishwasher on my own. My husband's away for work at the moment. And, I did all these things and it was great. And then, today so far is good, but like, who knows? And it's a twist of the ankle or a fall or, feeling frustrated that I can't reach my favorite cup or, those things. It can be as simple as anything really that can like launch you back into that feeling of grief.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of the stages of grief doesn't really apply because people can grieve for many different reasons years down the track.
What is the importance, if any at all, in your opinion, of the collective Rare Diseases Day, of having one?
Yeah, I think having a Rare Diseases Day, so there's definitely like MS Awareness Month or, things like that. But there's so many rare diseases in ways that you can't have a day or a month set aside for everything. And I think the idea of having one central day and being able to highlight so many different things shows people, particularly, able-bodied people, but also people, like us who just can't know about all of the different rare diseases. It really is a chance to highlight so many different things that we can't possibly be aware of everything. So I think having one central day and being able to, put that focus on lots of different things is really important.
That's really good. And I will put notes in under the show here for people to reach out if they want to start following you on Instagram, following your journey, your wheelchair meets wilderness journey in April in Western Australia, and also the link to donate to the Menzies Institute in Tasmania for MS research. And we wish you lots of luck in April, and thank you for coming, Clare Reilly. Hello. Hi. Now you hear from me, Leanne Watson, on my rare disease and what it means for me and what the importance that I think there is in having a Rare Diseases Day. My rare disease, of course, as most of you probably know by now, is limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. And at this stage, the subtype is unknown despite 3 genome sequencing type tests that I've had over the years with different organisations. It's limb-girdle muscular dystrophy is characterised by the weakness of, it's basically muscle atrophying, which is wasting away, and it's caused by, there's over 20 or now over 30 different identified reasons why it happens. A lot of the time it can come with its own comorbidities, which for me is liver cirrhosis, and then other complications coming from muscle weakness with your internal organs and that sort of thing as well, now including respiratory. But it starts off whether you develop the symptoms from a very early age or whether you're an adult like I was. Starts off with weakened thigh and hip muscles and then goes to your arms and shoulders, and then all those muscles connect to other muscles. So the trajectory of limb-girdle muscular dystrophy is different for all of us. Some people might never end up in a wheelchair. Others, like me, it comes on pretty quickly. So in the last 20 years, I've gone from, walking fairly well or just with a little slight gait to now being fully reliant on technology, people particularly, and assistive devices to do everything for me, from feeding me, showering, toileting, organising, like even this, to organise the podcast. I need, the lights turned on by someone else, and I rely on the voice to text to write my notes first and that sort of thing. So limb-girdle muscular dystrophy can be quite, it can affect you differently. What does living with a rare disease mean for me? Well, thank you for asking, Leanne. It actually means that my whole life has pretty well turned on its head from a existential point of view, I guess, but from the outside, I still retain my role as like a loved and loving friend. Foremost, of course, I'm still in a great relationship with my husband, who's been completely paramount to me continuing having a good quality of life, a great quality of life. My children, particularly my daughters-in-law, my grandchildren. So, of that, and even in the community, even though I don't get out as often and that sort of thing, from a broader perspective, my life sort of hasn't changed in the general sense. But the roles the specific things I do within that are quite different now. Obviously, I'm not cooking, I'm not sewing, I'm not babysitting. There's a whole heap of changes. I'm not going on girls' weekends, all that sort of thing that I'd like to do. The choices that I would like to have are not there anymore. On the flip side, as it happens with a lot of people, the opportunities that I've found and the community that I've engaged with, the disability community, and all the actual wonderful allies, like able-bodied or not, allies for the disabled people in our community that I've met and found, and I truly have felt very, very honoured, but very enriched by all that. I feel like my rare disease, LGMD, has broadened in many ways. It's broadened my perspective on life and people, humanity, in a really good way. Made me think about myself and my role and what I want to offer to the world and to my family in the way that I can, in the best way that I can. So it definitely changed my life, and also made me aware of how really special people are, like my husband, who have a lot of integrity, who stand by you. It's not just words, stand by you through, sickness and health and thick and thin and that sort of thing. It really is a very, very, when you become as profound as I am with your disability, it really is a hard slog and very exhausting for both parties. So it's made me much more aware of all the people, the trillion, the heaps of people out there that are playing a caring role, whether you're a child, a parent, a partner, a friend, a sister. We just all rely on each other in any way, and sometimes it's just a little bit more tiring than other times to do that. So it's definitely made me more aware of that. So anyway, I probably have spoken way longer than I needed to about what living with my rare disease, LGMD, means for me. But I have written my notes now of what is the importance of a collective Rare Diseases Day. And this is what they are. I feel a collective Rare Diseases Day is important for many reasons. One, acknowledging the importance of self-advocating and trusting yourself when you know something is wrong, even in the face of professionals that have studied their line of medicine for many, 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 many years. They're still learning. There is so much to our bodies that not everyone still maybe will never understand. I think the importance of Collective Rare Diseases Day, like many other days of acknowledgement, gives us a bit of a sense of community and a voice to those of us, regardless of their rare disease, because despite the 1,000 odd rare diseases, we mostly all share the same commonalities, mainly misunderstanding from our peers and misdiagnosing from medical profession. And probably most of us a bit of gaslighting ourselves and maybe shaming ourselves because, we shouldn't, in inverted commas, be limping or having trouble with energy or that sort of thing. Some diseases present less profoundly than others, but they all bring varied perceptions and realities of otherness or stigmatism, loss of voice, autonomy, choice, and our sense of self. An annual day hopefully helps to advance an understanding among the whole of society that our safety and comfort matter, our ability to live and be loved and to contribute matters. So I hope that all makes sense. And with all the other answers we've had from our fantastic guests, I hope that really has given you some comfort and some understanding of rare diseases. Happy Rare Diseases Day, everyone, and take care. You have just listened to episode 2, our final episode of Leanne's Real Life Rare Diseases Day podcast series. I'm Leanne Watson, and I hope that you can either relate to or feel an allyship with those 40 million of us globally that live with a rare disease. That's Australia's population 1.5 times. Spreading recognition of the many, many ways our bodies can let us down or cause us to move through this world differently can only be a good thing to increase compassion and understanding and change our perceptions of how a normalised body should look, act, and move. This understanding is important to our whole society, from research, health clinician training, and policy making to our interactions with strangers, work colleagues, and bosses, family, friends, and the way we view ourselves. Thank you for listening to both these podcasts called You, Me, and Rare Disease. I thank all my guests for being so candid and helpful in sharing their information. If you would like more information on any of my guests, their websites and social media links will be on the show notes. I'll also tag them on Instagram if you follow me there, Leanne's_will_life. Take care. Look after yourselves.